had killed the market for, of course. So now this had killed the market for, of course.
I'm ready.
Well, I don't know whether I'm clear, whether I can be seen. Let me hope I can be seen. Let me hope everyone can see me. Can see me. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, watching me here on Black Fire Network. My name is INNOSSETU, and today is a Monday. Today is 29th of July. Yeah, this is the 7th month of the year, and it is, of course, 39 minutes past 4 p.m. here in Kampala, Uganda, where I'm broadcasting live from Ofori Meso. Thank you for that like, Ofori. It has been long, Ofori, without seeing you. I don't know what happened. What happened, Ofori? It has been like you have been lost, Ofori. Let me hope you're doing good. Guys, I welcome you all from that long weekend. Like I already say, a weekend starts from Thursday evening until Monday morning. Let me hope you're doing good. Let me hope everything is fine at your side, wherever you're watching me from. Yeah. For those that watch me from, of course, different media platform, starting with Ofori on Facebook, thank you for watching. And of course, for those that are watching me for the first time on Facebook, the page is Black Fire Radio Station page. You can like and follow the page, as well as, of course, YouTube Black Fire Network too. That is YouTube. You can also watch me from YouTube, as well as Twitter at the same time. Today's topic is, of course, Maria. Before Maria, how are you? Maria, how are you? Maria, where is
I'm
Maria?
fine. So on the number of the Shakari, about that,
So today, of course, I'm not alone in the studio. I'm with, of course, my colleague Africa Maria. She will be greeting you in the next, in the coming, of course, minutes, she will be, of course, great with you. But so today's topic is about Mali. We all know what happened in Mali. Mali, this is of course a West African country. This is a country that of course has a junta president, or a president that took over through a military coup. So Mali has been of course experiencing a lot in the past years, and of course this happens actually to all West African countries. They have that delayed, that problem of course of rebels. If they are not Islamist rebels, there are certain rebels that are anti-government rebels that don't support the government. So a lot happened yesterday, where of course, the famous, of course, rebel group, and those are the Taureg rebels in Mali, of course, killed Russian, of course, missionaries. When, of course, the junta government took over power from the previous president that was in Mali, of course, we see that countries like Mali, countries like Burkina Faso, countries like Gabon, of course, these countries, even inclusive, and of course Niger, these countries, they of course welcomed the Russians. Prior, it was the French people, it was the French that was of course taking, of course, that was controlling these areas. When we look at the political structure, in most of in these, of course, in the countries I've mentioned before, when you look at the political structure, when we look at the social structure, and of course the economic structure, they influenced a lot in the politics in these countries. Those are the French people during that time. When we go to economic structure, they controlled almost everything in those countries, including the banks, including the circulation of money, printing of money. They controlled everything. In social life, we see that the French language was taught during that time within those Western African countries. We look at the media in that area, in those areas, and that is Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and of course Guinea and Gabon. So after these new governments, of course, captured the power through coups, we saw a change where almost in these countries they expelled the French, they expelled France from these countries. They said no, we no longer want France in our politics, in our social life and economic structure. So the French people took away their troops from these countries. Currently, there might not be even an embassy of France in those areas. When we look at Mali, Burkina Faso, and all those countries, they might not be having a French, of course, um, embassies in those countries due to the expulsion these people did. So after expelling these, of course, after expelling France from the politics of course, from the entire country of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, so these people welcomed the Russians. The Russians. So these people welcomed the Russians, and of course, we see that Russia is taking over all of these countries that, of course, that had coups, like Burkina Faso. We have seen a lot of nuclear deals Russia has been making with these countries in Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Niger. Russia is trying to also show existence in these countries. So when Russians came, of course, into these countries signed deals with of course, with Russia, like of course suppressing the rebel groups, suppressing the rebel groups in these countries, like the Taureg, like the Islamist groups in, of course, in Mali. I mean in Burkina Faso and other countries that where of course they took control of. So Russian missionaries in Africa, of course, we have seen Russian missionaries in Africa, actually almost African countries. These are people that are creating a chaos in most of these countries where they are staying. Actually, they are forging to be creating peace, but in exchange of African resources, in exchange of the unestimated amount of. In reality, these are people that are creating insurgencies in Africa. These were the Russian mission and of course, mercenaries, the so-called Wagner group. So when we look at them in Libya, these people are existing in Libya. The Russian of course, mercenaries. We see them in Libya. Of course, they are creating chaos. They are creating fake notes, fake banknotes in Libya, despite of what Libya is going through right about now. But these people, they are using that chance to create chaos in the country. We saw them some time back. They are responsible. They are responsible for the killing of civilians in Mali. We once had a topic here on Black. We once had a topic here on Black Hot Fire Network where, of course, we show, actually we show in the world how these people are creating, of course, instability. These people are killing people. They are raping women in Mali. It was until yesterday that we saw, of course, these terrorists, of course, they attacked the government forces and the so-called Russian, of course, mercenaries, and these are the, of course, the Wagner group. We see that a mainly Taureg, as of course, separatist coalition has claimed a major victory over the Mali's Game and its Russian allies following 3 days of intense fighting in a district on the Algerian border. Of course, the border between Algeria and Mali. So this is what these people said. Our forces, of course, decisively obliterated these enemy columns on Saturday, said the statement by Mohammed, and this is the spokesperson of the Permanent Strategic Framework for the Peace, Security and Development Alliance on Sunday. So a large amount of equipment and weapons were seized or damaged, and of course prisoners were taken in the statement. So adding that 7 rebels were killed and of course 12 wounded in the fighting in that district border. So Mali's military rulers led by Colonel Asim Goita took power in 2020 and turned into Russia's Wagner group of mercenaries for security assistance after expelling French forces in 2022. So the Taureg are a ethnic group who have been fighting for independence since 2012 in Mali. So large-scale fighting broke out on Thursday between the West African Nationalist Army and the separatists of of course in the border district after the army announced it had taken control of several districts. We see that in that border district where fighting was going on, we see that almost entirely was surrounded by Algerian, of course, territory, and has been a scene of other battles between the separatists forces and the army over the past decades. We see that the CSP and PSD also said it damaged the helicopter, which of course crashed, which of course crashed, of course, and the rebel stronghold, of course, lost control over several districts in 2023. So a lot has been going on. we see that the Mali army said in the statement that soldiers had been killed, which is wrong, and 10 injured. So one of its helicopters crashed in Kidal on Friday while the routine mission, but no one was killed in vain. The Wagner, of course, are fighters. We see that in some of the videos shared. And by the way, these Wagner so-called fighters, these people, they spread a lot of propaganda. For those that have been, for the people that follow them, have been following them. So in some of the videos shared by the rebels with the AFP news agents, we see that white soldiers were visible among the prisoners. So the agents said in a report on Sunday that a local official and a former worker with the United Nations mission told, of course, at the press that Mali army had retreated with at least 15 fighters from the Russia's Wagner group and killed or arrested. So we see that several Russian, of course, military bloggers reported of about at least 20 from the Wagner group were killed in the ambush near the Algerian border. So employees of the Wagner PMC group who were moving in a convoy with the government troops were killed in Mali. So some were captured, say the prominent Russian military blogger. So the Baza Telegram news channel, which has links to the Russia's security structures, reported that at least 20 Wagner fighters were, of course, have been killed in the so-called attack. So Mali has said that Russian forces are not Wagner mercenaries, but trainers helping local troops with equipment bought from Russia. So meanwhile, there have been several, of course, accusations of the rights abuses of the civilians population by the Malian army and the Wagner forces, like I said it is at first. So of course, Mali authorities deny these allegations, but violence by rebels linked by Al-Qaeda, as well as the community self-defense and of course pro-Mali organizations, has also locked Mali since 2012. So, however much, of course, the Mali government, of course, it comes out and says that, of course, all the allegations that are made by, of course, to the government in Mali, to Mali government, and of course the Wagner group, in of course violating human rights within, of course, Libya. The government, of course. It doesn't say that these things are real. These things are, of course, are not real. Yes, Maria, how are you? Oyogera ate nga
I'm
wetti.
fine. How are you?
How is there?
We are doing good.
That's great if you're doing good that side. It's good to hear that you're doing good.
Good how?
So a lot, of course, a lot is happening in Mali. Like I said, this kind of the Taureg rebel group. This is, of course, an ethnic rebel group that is, of course, fighting for independence since 2012 in Mali. But besides, of course, everything, the Mali, of course, government turning to, of course, to the Russians, but Why is it that it is very hard for, of course, for governments, for countries to realize, or to come out, of course, and of course, to come out and of course address the real issues people are going through? We see that this, of course, these mercenaries, the Wagner group, they have of course created the chaos in most of the African countries wherever they are. They have created, because they have created the chaos. They are killing people, civilians, not even rebels, not even rebels. On top of that, they are very expensive to maintain. They are extremely expensive to maintain. And most of the countries, wherever they are, they want exchange, their payment. They want their payment in form of gold. They don't want hard cash. Apart from the Libya, where of course we saw that these people, the Wagner of course group, is printing out fake banknotes in Libya. Of course, it is straining Libya's economic situation, despite of what Libya is going through. Uh, but they are creating a lot of chaos. They are killing people. But actually, it is the same thing that I said last week. Like these West African countries, where of course where Russia is, or where these people, the so-called junta presidents, are, they are making a mistake of Russia. They are forgetting what they went through with what they are forgetting what they went through during France and during the French period, during during decades when France was within the West African countries. They are forgetting that. Because and what makes of course things terrible is that we see that governments within these countries, they are siding with these of course working of course mercenaries. So the reason why Wagner mercenaries are in these areas is to protect these presidents, is to protect these governments, not to protect the people. They're protecting the presidents. That's why they don't care whether they are killing civilians, as long as you are against the government, they will kill you. Yet they are expensive to maintain. Um, yes, we saw, of course, when we go back to the French period between in the western part of Africa, during the French period, those countries had become more poor than they were before, despite of of course the schools these people built in those areas, despite of the media houses they had in these areas. But we had no change. We had no developments in these areas. Like we had no developments, like a tangible development that can be seen by everyone. So it is the same thing that Russia is creating. It is protecting these of course presidents because of its interests. No matter why, many rebel groups actually are coming out in these areas. Burkina Faso, Niger, and of course Mali. No matter why we see a lot of rebel groups coming out now, it is because these presidents, they are making the same mistakes they made with the French. Okay, go.
We know that the Wagner Group has been in Africa for some good time now, and its existence in Mali was so loud, especially during the moment of the coup and military taking over Mali's government. We know that the Wagner Group, of course, which at times is termed as Africa Corps in Africa, which is kind of weird because the Russians are not African. Somehow, the Wagner Group itself has started to brand itself as an international African corps or international African corps that are not only in a particular African country, but they are almost everywhere in Africa. They no longer call themselves the Wagner Mercenaries, but they call themselves the Africa Corps. This is the first symbol to show that Russia is here to take the label and probably not going anywhere anytime soon. Now, Russia has, of course, had that tendency. Before we saw that Russia usually said it does not meddle in Africa's politics, so it does not care who and who. But recently, Russia's actions have been quite different because it has rather been too much into protecting or securing positions for particular African leaders, more especially those who have had deals with Russia. Of course, we know very well that Wagner Group is a private military company, a network of machineries, of course, from Russia, and it is, of course, known. For some good time, we have not known Wagner Group, though it has been in existence for some time now, but it has been known to Africa so loudly in regards to the recent actions that have been in the western part. But Wagner Group has been in Africa for some time. Uh, when we saw what happened in Niger, the situation in Niger was so violent. But it was so unfortunate. Actually, as we celebrated, of course, a dictator being overthrown, of course, we saw people run with hard cash in bags and all that. We usually, I always, I don't know, maybe this is me in how I see things. We are always overwhelmed with what we see because one, we are so desperate, angry, and hungry, and we don't care whatever means we are going to use. All we want is to see change, and when we see something close to that, we jubilate and celebrate without questioning a lot of things. And at times I say maybe, well, what can we do about it? I don't know. When we had Niger and the coups that were, when the coup that happened in Niger, that of course brought the military juntas into power, um, we saw videos of a lot of prime ministers, governors, and all those, big guys in Niger, of course, being arrested with hard cash in huge bags. Some of them were trying to, of course, elope and all that. And we were really happy about this. But there is something that we forgot, that the Wagner Group have been in Niger even before this coup. And they have been in some parts What makes us think that these people have no hand in the cash flow and they had cash to be so with a lot of these other, people? Because of course, at times these people have dealings that earns them that money. So when we, of course, when we saw the webinar group, some people didn't know that it was in Niger before even the coup. It's a private military, sorry, a private military machinery group. Of course, it was there privately. It had nothing to do with the government and all that. But we realized that the Wagner group was guarding different mineral areas. And some areas, even the people of Niger were not allowed to reach into, because you will find roadblocks of Russian people, Bazungu having roadblocks in Africa, where is that normal? Deciding who to pass and who shouldn't pass, and questioning why do you want to go there, and that means they had full power, of course, full power around that, or those particular areas that, of course, they were guarding. And of course, everyone those who try to question, issues were like, these are private military officials. They can be, hired by anybody. So it has got nothing to do with the government and all that. So when Russia realized that anytime the Niger president is going to be kicked out, his ass is going to be kicked, they played along. Because for them, they don't really care. Who matters is that person whom they believe they are going to benefit from. And this has been what, of course, a lot of colonizers, exploiters, a lot of these people, this is the same tactic that they use. After using you, they dump you. We have seen this. We have seen this throughout time. And I think we tend or we turn a blind eye to such kind of things because we are so desperate for, when a child is hungry, whatever you bring on a table is what they eat, as long as at least they feel that sense of satisfaction. And I think this is Africa and the reaction towards a lot of things that are coming up right now. I know we have. It is so overwhelming and exciting, and something probably because for something to happen something that you didn't expect to happen happening so quick. That given the fact of the situation that a lot of our leaders, of course, are treating us, yeah. So when we had this junta in Niger take over, people celebrated, but so quick, within even 2 days, I think, within that duration, of course, we had the Wagner group declaring as a group that is going to be protecting the military and it's going to be supporting the military. A lot of people went into the bush. You see where Africa's issues can never end. A lot of people went into the bush, mostly those who were in the military, commanders and their platoons, and whoever believed in them just entered the bush. I told you, most of the Africans here, we have bushes, is where we strategically locate ourselves if at all we are to have rebellions, because those are the best places where we can hide. So when I said that bush, just know that is an area where that is when people are creating a rebellion and they set themselves in a given a settlement. So a lot of people, a lot of military officials who are even together with this, the same military officials who took over power, were in disagreement, of course, of having Russia. Because remember, I told you, having Russia or the Wagner group in Niger was one of the reasons why a lot of people, a lot of the military supported the current government. They did not want to work with the Wagner, because some of them were like, how can you bring machineries? We are here to protect our country. We are having a lot of different people. They are undermining us. You cannot cross the other side. If the Wagner groups are there, they undermine the African military and all that. The beefing was kind of huge between the Nigerian military officials. So others took it so personal. It was so easy for them, of course, to agree with the coup, thinking that the moment everything goes back to normal, we're going to have the Nigerian military officials taking over. And unfortunately, again, the juntas also started working together with Russia. And some other military officers were not contented. They were in disbelief because they were like, why, if at all this is still continuing? And some of them, of course, entered the bush, like I always say. So they had to send a rebellion. Now, most of these, some of the rebels, because we have got different rebel groups in Niger right now, and they are all fighting for specific reasons. Now we have got a rebel group in Niger. We have got rebel groups in Niger, and this same rebel group in Niger is still running and expanding to Mali. And it's expanding to Mali. It is expanding to, of course, Burkina Faso. And this group is a little bit like another unified group that is rebelling against the juntas. Now, this is the major rebel group we have seen declaring in Mali that they have killed apparently like 20, I should say like 20 Russian mercenaries. For them, they are not about any change. They just don't want to see the Wagner group in the western part of Africa. And this is why most of their major targets right now, they are focusing on the Wagner group. I told you we've got, now this rebel group is not only in Mali. First, it started in Niger and it went expanding. I think they got those other people with whom they have the same belief, from Mali to Burkina Faso to Niger, and as the junta community, of course, is running. Now, you see, when we have a change of leadership, of course, there are a lot of people who are not satisfied with the decision. We have rebels who are up against the junta. We have got rebels who are up against the coup. We don't want coup. We are rebels who are doing a religious thing. Now, Russia, being basically a Christian country, and of course, these other countries having a bigger population of Muslims, there is also another rebellion group, another rebel group, that is fighting this in a religious way. Now you can understand how crazy. The world is not actually talking about these things for now. I don't know, maybe they don't make that, it's not so capturing, but I foresee something serious in these countries. As we celebrate the new leadership, I see a lot. Because like we always say here, Africa has been brainwashed a lot. We have got people fighting for wrong reasons. We have got people, because if you are in the bush or if you are becoming a rebel for religious purposes, that is the wrong reason. That is not a reason for you to be out there trying to kill people and all that. Now, with the belief of Islam, most of these people being Islamists, how are Catholics going to take over our Muslim countries? Are we not going to see Russia trying to change our religion? This is not allowed by Allah. We have got people preaching that in these countries, and I can assure you there is more to come, because religious wars are the worst war Africa can ever experience. Because these wars are rooted deeper than even Africa fighting for its, geographical area or of Africa's independence as it is. But we know this is something right now that probably the media is not streaming about, and I really know why. If we are to follow Al Jazeera, CNN, and all that, of course, most of these people are up against Russia and the Wagner groups being in Africa. And you know how it is. You know how this is. And it would be so stupid for people to be broadcasting that we have got rebels actually trying to attack the Russia's machineries, not because they want to have power of their own, but because they believe it is a Christian group of people and they are Muslim group of people. How are these people going to run? We have Putin is a Catholic man. How is Putin going to run over a Muslim country? We are Muslims, we believe in Allah. You are allowing a Jesus and Holy Mary person to come and take over. We cannot allow all those dealings. There is too much. You remember, there is a time Burkina Faso actually, of course, we saw United Arab Emirates sending in military help and all that to, of course, Burkina Faso, and they were like, we are with you. United Emirates it's crazy. United Emirates, as it is united against a lot of things.
Enkuba etonnya wegatavaako ate obwedda eyagala kutonnya.
Naffe etonnya. Togeza n'ovaako n'onyakkaano mukama we amala kulaba. Let me tell you, I changed my phone. I'm trying to change my phone tonight. It's raining. Power meant to go off. So, we saw United Arab Emirates. It is very unusual for us to see these people involving themselves. But of course, when United Arab Emirates came, a lot of people were like, yeah, because we are brothers, we are Muslims, our fellow Muslims are supporting us. You could hear that there is there is a stronghold when it comes to their religious beliefs and of course being of the same religion. From there, I think they still have a certain, strength or a bond that we haven't seen yet. Because that, I believe, never stopped there. Okay? I'm still gonna refer you to a scenario in Nigeria. I remember it was like around 2008, 7, 8, 9, around there, where Buhari, the former president of Nigeria, visited some of the Arab countries. And he made some deals with these Arab countries. And usually when these people are making these deals, it is more of brotherhood. And for them, these deals they were making was, of course, education for the Muslim fraternity, the Muslim people, and of course they wanted them to help with, of course, talking to the Boko Harams and all that. Of course, we saw the Nigerian president at that time visiting Oman, visiting Saudi Arabia, not for this is it pilgrim thing they usually do? It wasn't about that. It was more of a politics. So that means most of these treaties, remember, these people sign agreements and stuff. For us, we hardly know what they have signed and why they are doing what they are doing. Now, when we saw United Arab Emirates, of course, joining to support Ibrahim Traore and sending him some military help aid, equipment, clothes, and all that, it was a sign to show Ibrahim Traore probably that we are together in this, and there is something he knows more than we do. All right. And I know the United Arab Emirates, they did not stop there. They are still together. But the country of Burkina Faso as a whole celebrated this aid. Oh, you know, United Arab Emirates being a big place. Of course, everyone imagines it the way the media shows it. Everyone is like, now if you are dealing with this, is that you know, probably there is more importance. From there, as people said, it is religious brotherhood. I knew the volume of the religious impact in Burkina Faso. And this is why it has been easy for Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger to have a strong bond. That bond is going beyond politics. There is that religious brotherhood that they have. Now, for such a staunch region, having the biggest population of the people being Muslims and allowing influence from a country that is well known to be a Christian country, you can imagine. You can only imagine how many people are going to be against this. And this is why I say we have got a lot of people who are targeting the Wagner group as a Wagner group. For them, they don't really care who is in power. They don't really care what people do. They just don't want Christians over there. They don't want Christians taking off. Because recently, having been in Africa by the or lived in Africa and visiting some different countries in Africa, I have experienced how most Africans feel when it comes to religion. All right. Now, recently we saw people, of course, posting on social media. We are seeing the Wagner men raping the women. For you to only, even if it is a mutual sex, for you as a Christian man to only have a mutual agreed mature sex with a Muslim woman, some staunch Muslims can even kill that woman and kill you, a man. Now, if we saw claims, we are seeing the Wagner groups have started to pregnant them, and for them, they're not saying our girls, they're saying our Muslim ladies and all that. I knew there was something more to just what meets the eyes. And this is the number one way of stirring the entire community against a specific group, like the Wagner group now. Of course, we've seen people celebrating, a lot of rebels celebrating that they've killed so far like 20. Now, you remember, when we are looking at Wagner group right now, we are only not looking at the faces of Russians. When the Wagner group came into Africa, more especially into the junta communities, I call them the junta communities, the three, Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso. So yeah, those are I guess the big three juntas. When we see this, when these people came, they recruited other people. They trained other Africans. They trained people from Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger. So they added to their military or to their machinery. So they are mixed African blacks and Russians. I guess because the black people were quite aware of the area. But of course, so it is not only, but if you see the it is when we are talking about this junta for now, it's not about the Russians' presence. And I can assure you, in the coming years, we are about to see all the African cops in Africa, like they are calling themselves now, the Russian or the Wagner military group training Africans, black people working for Russia. We may not see a lot of Russian faces. We may see a lot of African faces in the Wagner military group working in Africa to suppress their fellow Africans, as of course mercenaries. And I know they're going to be trained in their whatever, because every military group has their own code. And we don't expect to see like a lot, because the influence a black person has towards others is quite different to the influence that these white Russians or the Russians may be having. And I think this was introduced when Russia also identified that there is a huge religious difference within the countries that it wanted to take lead. And this is why we see Wagner Group trying to train many Africans to join it, more especially in these specific countries that need its, of course, work. So we may see a lot of black people, whether they are Muslims or what, joining the Wagner machinery, working as mercenaries for the Wagner Group, and it may a little bit suppress this all power or chaos that is taking or is happening. I, for one, am never in support of having Russia having power over these particular countries. But I also know very well that it is hard for these countries to stand. Because you see, as you fight for power, or as you become a leader, there are still other lots of people who have been eyeing that position, probably for some long time. And they are willing to do anything just to take that place. Now, these are people who rebelled, and I remember I told you, it is not that all of them were in full support. We saw others still joining different groups to go and, of course, act against the current governments because they were up against the Wagners. Wagner, like I said, has been in these countries before we had these coups. And it has been working in these countries before we had the coups. So more especially in Nigeria, like I say, and Mali, by the way. So when these other military officials had these agreements and they decided to go to, now you can understand why we've had a lot of tempted coups since these new leaders came into power. The agreement they had with a lot of the military people who fought with them is not the agreement they are keeping. Like I said, the bigger thing was not allowing Wagner Group, because Wagner Group has been exploiting most of these countries for some time, mineral-wise, okay, taking gold and other things, and some of them, and of course, undermining the military officials, like in Mali, where Wagner Group was, the military Wagner Group officials were, looked at, as people in a higher hierarchy compared to the people who have struggled and suffered for their country. And this caused a lot of commotion within. Now, for them to see that the people they hate are still spearheading this, has caused a lot of commotion. Now, some others are like, if you are not doing what we both agreed on, we are still seeing the Russians in the country, we are still seeing the Christians, let me say, because they don't look at them like Russians, they don't really care. They categorize them as those other people. So, those are particularly so a few reasons why we are having this, instability. Excuse me, a letter.
Thank you, Maria, for that. Of course, elaboration of the Wagner group, the Wagner, of course, mercenaries, and their existence in Africa, and the reasons why they are here. When we look at, of course, when we look at in the recent years, the Russian Federation has been using the private military corporation, and that is the Wagner. However much there are a lot of links where Russia comes out and, of course, deny any allegation that is collaborating with Wagner Group. But we see that the Russian Federation, of course, has been using this private military corporation and, of course, an illegal armed forward, of course, formation that of course that was created by, of course, by Yuvin. Of course, that is a military, of course, guy, a former military official. We see that the first and foremost is to gain control over African regimes. That is the Wagner Group. That is why it is here in Africa, is to gain control over African regimes. That's why we see that most of all these West African countries where we see this, of course, this group, they are trying to control the politics in these countries. They are trying to control almost everything in this country, in these countries, because they want to gain control over African regimes. And we see that the Wagnerites become part of the Russia's foreign policy aimed at making the African countries dependent on it and exploiting natural resources. Second, their activities expand, of course, Moscow's zone of political influence and weaken the positions of European states and United States in Africa. Thirdly, Russia is trying to undermine and destabilize different parts of Africa, which should, of course, distract the West's, of course, attention from containing Russia in the Central and the Eastern Europe. In general, we see that Russia's policy of course, in the region of Africa is formed of three key elements. That is information, propaganda, political, economic, and, of course, military strengthening. The Wagners or PMCs focuses on the military and, of course, partly economic element, but operates in close coordination with, of course, other Russian institutions. So it's not like we see that Wagner, of course, are mercenaries that they are in Africa. There are even other Russian, of course, institutions that are here in Africa in the name of Wagner. So we see that the presence of course, of Wagner in Africa, we see that in the Central African Republic, Libya, Sudan, Chad, Cameroon, Mali, Democratic Republic of Congo, Mozambique, Burkina Faso. These are the major countries where the Wagner Group is putting its stay. So we see that military support actually is not always the main reason for entering a country. More important are its mineral resources. We have already actually seen, of course, many examples like Libya, the Central African Republic, Sudan, and a weak central, of course, government that is unable to control the entire territory of the country can help them in this. The Wagner Group enters into alliances with the local leaders whose lands contain mineral resources. This is what they do. So, as long as it is in the country, for Like for you as a president, you have no say. They make cooperations, they sign agreements with the local leaders and the local people where resources are located so that they can exploit them. That's why they end up killing civilians. And of course, and it starts with protecting, of course, them in exchange for mining and exports. That is what we are seeing in Africa. For Wagner Group, actually, Wagner Group, of course, are mercenaries being killed in Mali yesterday, but one. Yes, they were killed, but it is not their responsibility to take care of the rebels in the country. For them, they have to protect leaders in exchange for resources. So looking at Central African Republic, the war in the country, of course, has been going on, of course, intimately since 2012. It's Central Republic only. So the main confrontation is between the Muslim North. I'm talking about Central African Republic, where we see that it has been having a war since 2000, of course, 12. And the main confrontation is between the Muslim North, who are so-called the Seleka Rebel Alliance, and the Christian South, which retains control of the capital of Bangui and supports the central government. So the Wagner mercenaries have been present in the country since 2016. At that time, under the command of Barre, of course, Zakov. By the time of the conflict in Libya broke out, the Central African Republic had already become the main base of the Wagner PMCs on African continent. See, over time, the Russians essentially, of course, took over the regime. Of course, even funding cultural events. Those are the Russians. They fund cultural events. And at the end of May 2000, and of course, and 19, a representative office of the Russian Ministry of Defense was established under the government, of course, in the capital of Central African Republic, and the arms supplies was stepped up. In return, Wagner says the control of gold and diamond deposits within Central African Republic. So, Russian, of course, mercenaries become the main bodyguard of the president of Faustin or Cheng, and that is this is the president of the Central African Republic. For them, their work is to protect these leaders. Their responsibility all about suppressing, of course, rebel groups in the country. They protect leaders, but of course, link them to gold and, of course, diamond deposits. Only in the early 2021, we see that they saved the regime by defeating the attempts of the coalition of patriots for change. So individual mercenaries are regularly killed in crashes. So the Russians frequently commit war crimes. I know killing civilians, raping women, staff, killing, like looting, everything. But of course, we see that of course, in January, and that was 2022, they killed at least 65 civilians in villages of Yanga, and that is Central African Republic, without even going far to Mali. These people kill civilians. When I talk about a civilian, this is a person that has never, of course, got any military training. Someone who doesn't know how to use military equipments like guns. This is the attacking of someone who is unarmed. So, Russian instructors train the government army and, of course, actively supply weapons and armored vehicles in the area or in Africa. There is evidence of Russian elites, of course, jewelry and currency reserves being stored in the country, and that is Central African Republic. The Wagner Group operatives also recruit locals for war in Ukraine from local prisons. This is what Maria has been talking about. They recruit locals in these areas where they go for war in Ukraine. and they get them from these local prisons. They train them and set them for war. So, increased Russian activity in the region of Africa peaked in 2021 and 22. Through the Central African Republic, the military presence is being exported to Mali and Burkina Faso, where Russia has, of course, supported the armed coups. This is no doubt that Russia supported this because by the time immediately after these guys had got power, had overthrown the previous government, then we saw Russia taking control, Russia rising up, Russia signing nuclear deals, Russia coming out to, of course, to make strategies, political strategies in these countries. We see that also there may be, of course, escalations on the country's borders, particularly in Chad, where the situation has deteriorated after the death of President Idris Deby. That is Central African Republic. And the Central African Republic, this is the area where, of course, these Russian missionaries, they, of course, they started, actually, they have been in of course, in Central African Republic since 2016, and they went on, of course, spreading to these other countries by the years of 2021, 2022. They spread it to other areas that are, of course, that are surrounding Central African Republic, like Mali, and of course, like Mali, and of course, Burkina Faso. So the Wagner Group, or Russians in Libya. Libya, of course, is the second main base. The first main base is the Central African Republic, like I said, and the second main base of the Wagner PMCs in Africa is Libya. And we see that they have been operating there since 2018 and 2019. The other time we had a topic here where these people are printing out notes in Libya. So there have been, of course, this is the second main base of the Wagner Group operations in Africa, and that is Libya. And they have been in existence or operating in this area since 2018 and 2019. And of course, took an active part in the last major offensive of the Libyan National Army when General Haftar's troops, of course, reached the southern outskirts of Tripoli. Russia's non-combat involvement dates back to 2014 during the first civil war in Libya. So the Wagner force operatives openly stand by Field Marshal Khalifa Haftar and his Eastern government, protecting him and acting as military and political advisors. So, Maria, at the time when Russia comes out and says for it, it doesn't interfere with the politics of the country. But these, I mean, in real sense, these are the people that, of course, strategize for whatever the country it does. They put down strategies for whatever the country is going through. Actually, they interfere African politics, they interfere politics, economics, and of course, the social way in Africa. So, after the start of the Russia's, of course, a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, approximately 1,000 of Wagner fighters were transferred to our territory from Libya. However, this, of course, does not mean that the PMC's operation in the North African country have, of course, decreased or stopped. Quite the contrary, they are expanding. The political, economic, and of course security situations in Libya remains unstable because of these people. So some sources say that fighters in Libya have not been paid for 10 months. So the main activities of the PMCs in Libya include offensive operations, offensive of course operations, training and provision of equipment for the LONA. This is the, of course this is the government, or this is the military, the government that is headed by Haftar, by General Haftar. We know that Libya is divided in almost three parts. There is a government in Tripoli and a government in Benghazi. So they supported the government in Tripoli, the Russians. So ensuring, of course, personal security, for Khalifa Haftar participation in negotiations and, of course, extraction of natural resources in Libya. This is the main reason why they're in Libya, actually in Africa, is to extract natural resources. And of course, in Libya, the Wagnerites are known for their crimes and involvement in oil exports and are located around oil fields and military bases controlled by Haftar and his Libyan National Army, the LNA. So it is the same thing I was saying that it is the same thing that these junta governments are making. The same things the French people are doing here. They are the same things this Wagner group is doing. So these include, of course, Al Qadim Air Base, the cities of Sayat, and of course Al Jufra in the center of the country, and that is Libya. It is these locations that advanced units with combat aircrafts and air defense are located. As for oil, there is always a risk that presence control will turn into access control or even a destruction of infrastructure, militarization for Western sanctions. And this would actually put the energy security of Europe, particularly in the south, at a significant risk. So, at the times we normally say here that these, of course, foreigners, these whites, whenever they come to Africa, for them they target areas where minerals are. They protect those areas, they collaborate with the people within those areas. That's why we don't see any war in Congo where we see minerals. There is no areas in Congo, there is no war in the areas that are surrounded with minerals, because these are areas that are guarded with the strong, of course, weapons. So it is the same case with Libya. The oil sources in Libya, they are guarded by these people. They are guarded by these people. You can't trespass. So when we go to Sudan, Wagner was, of course, invited to Sudan by the previous government of Omar al-Bashir in 2017 before he was overthrown, after a meeting with Putin in Moscow. It was, of course, a logical step after the mercenaries, of course, established their position in Libya. Although we see that the leader of this group, of the PMCs or the Wagner Group mercenaries, now denies that his fighters are present in the country. So this is the most likely untrue. Wagner Group, initially numbering up to 100 people, has been training the Sudanese army since 2018. But they have also been assisting General Hamdit, Hamdit's Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, since, of course, about 2021. So according to the Sudanese media, the number has grown to 500, of course, mercenaries stationed near the border of the Central African Republic and, of course, Sudan. So similar to the way Wagner structures control oil in Libya, they process gold in factories in Sudan. We see that the price of truckload of unprocessed gold can reach about 4,000 USD dollars. At the same time, they are protected by both Hamditi's forces and the Wagner's operatives. So the two armed groups have been working together for more than 4 years in the country. So there is evidence that the head of Rapid Support Forces in Sudan has agreed with Kremlin that billions of dollars from gold exports will not go to the budget, but will be exchanged for political and security support from Russia. So that is, of course, how Russia and, of course, Wagner Group operates in Africa. And we see that just since mid-April in 2023, Sudan has plunged into chaos due to the conflict between the two generals who had previously ruled the country together. The Wagner PMCs is formerly on the side of Hamdit, aka Mohammed Dangalo, the Dangalo guy, but also maintained ties with the ruling Al-Ban regime. Unlike Libya, Wagner's direct intervention in Sudanese conflict has so far been limited, but it cannot be ruled out that it will increase in the near future, especially given the defeats of the rapid support forces directly on the battlefield. So the biggest challenge for PMC for this Wagner group should now be, of course, protecting the mines and factories where the Sudanese gold is mined and processed, and of course, preventing the conflict from spreading to the border with, of course, Central African Republic, and of course, extending the entire conflict that is within Sudan to the mining areas. Because however much the country may be going through a lot of conflicts, but if they don't want these conflicts to extend to their mining areas where they're mining, they don't want conflicts within the country to extend to the mining areas. No, because because these are the areas of interest. It is okay for a country to be having conflicts, but don't extend in the mining areas. So when we look at this group, the Wagner, of course, mercenaries, of course, these PMCs in Chad, Chad has so far, of course, avoided direct intervention by the Wagner PMCs, but the country is seen as the next potential target of these Russians. So their main role here is played by cooperating with the rebel groups on the border between Libya, Sudan, Niger, and of course Central African Republic. So the Russians even wanted to step up a camp for 300, of course, Chadians, rebels in the Central African region. It also known that many young people from Chad have departed to join the Wagner group in the Central African Republic, which Maria talked about. So the Wagnerites might, of course, may be planning to overthrow the current government in Chad by surrounding the country with others where they are already present. So the motive is clear: abundant mineral resources, and in particular oil. So Western officials are now seriously concerned that the stability of the main US allies in Africa could be disrupted. Leaked US, of course, intelligence documents showed that Chad is part of the so-called um, um, Wagner Group Confederation states like Eritrea, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Mali, and of course Niger and Sudan. Where support where we are supposed to be there. So it is not yet known that specific actions of the Wagner, of course, PMCs will take against Chad, but they are quite possible in the near future. When we go to Cameroon, the state has long, of course, tried to maintain gender neutrality. Yet in 2021, Cameroon received the Russian Sputnik V vaccines. In 2022, Cameroon signed an agreement with Russia on military cooperation for 5 years. So France condemned this decision, and President Macron, of course, criticized such actions during the visit to the Macronian capital, drawing attention to the use of food crisis as a weapon by Russia. However, during the 2022, there is a general decrease of France's military presence in Cameroon due to the agreement the Cameroonian government signed with the Russians. So in December 2022, we see that the Cameroonian television company, Afrique Media, announced the start of cooperation with Russia today. So on the channel, with a French-speaking audience of millions, experts regularly supported Russian policy and justified the invasion of Ukraine. Can you imagine? So according to the investigations by the Africa Report, we see that Cameroon, along with the neighboring Central African Republic, has become the center of Wagner Group's economic activities. In particular, we are talking about the Ndasima gold mine in the Central African Republic, gold bars from which secretly sent to Russia through Cameroonian port. So, in particular, we see that, of course, Um, there are we are talking about the International Global Logistic Company, founded in, of course, by the Central African, of course, Republic, who by the Central African Republic annual, who probably works in the contact with the Roman and, of course, Vatili in the Central African Republic. So cheap Nigerian alcohol is also imported to the Central African Republic through this route. So accordingly, we see that increased activity to combat oppositional groups in the Central African Republic is being carried out along the highway from Dora to Bugui. That is, of course, a road that is connecting these two countries. And of course, a clash between, of course, Wagnerites or Wagner group and fighters of the coalition of patriots for change of course, in the Central African Republic was recorded in, of course, in the same area. Nevertheless, Russia's influence encountered problems at the end of 2022 and, of course, one day before. President Paul Biya is intensifying contacts with the United States. So this may be due to the intentions of the separatists in the west of the country to attract Wagner fighters to help. So this is, of course, evidenced by the sources of local journalists within the country. So the conflict in the, of course, in the Amazonia has been going on for years, as long as standing intercommunal confrontation bases on linguistics between French and Anglophones. So the country's territory was once divided between Britain and France. So the central government still controls the main activities, while the other sides, of course, control parts of the countryside, especially on the border with Nigeria. So the presence of the Western Cameroon, in case of the support of the Amazonia separatists, will allow the Wagner group to influence neighboring Nigeria and Chad. So a lot of people actually think that the so-called, of course, Wagner group is not existence. Of course, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, I told you, these people are looking for gold. These people are looking for minerals across Africa. They want to control governments in Africa. They want to get minerals from Africa. So wherever minerals are, these people will exist. These people will be there. So when we see Democratic Republic of Congo and the relation with the Wagner group, after, of course, President Felix Tshisekedi came to power in 2019, the influence of Russia and China seemed to have diminished compared to the previous leader, Joseph Kabila. So president of course, the Democratic Republic of Congo in between 2001 and 2019 was a student of Marxist, of course, dialectics and the theory of leadership of the anti-imperialist guerrilla movement in the Nanjing, and of course, naturally, a long-time friend of China, that is Kabila, Joseph Kabila. So over time, however, Moscow has begun to regain ground, especially since 2020, when supplies of the Russian septic V vaccine began to arrive in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So the Western failure, the failure of the Western assistance in the fight against the insurgents in the eastern part of Congo, we see that despite the UN stabilization mission is promoting a country to seek contacts with Moscow and Beijing. When I talk about Moscow, I mean Russia and China. So top level politicians are, of course, actively interacting with the representatives of Russia, the Speaker of Senate, and of course, the Speaker of Senate, that is Professor Bahati, attended the International Economic Forum organized from June, of course, 15th in 2022 in, of course, St. Petersburg. We see that a delegation of the Russian deputies visited Kinshasa, that is Congo, and met with the President of National Assembly, of course, that is Christophe Mboso, the first deputy of the President of the Senate and representative of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. So, when Mboso was also of course, invited by International Parliament, of course, conference in Russia in 2013. So all of these clarify and show relations that, of course, Russia is putting or is trying to create with the current government in, of course, in Congo. So media and cultural influence is equally important. So in particular, we should mention the Congolese press agency, which in October 2021 began a partnership with the Russian press agency. So in November 2022, we see that Kinshasa hosted the Russian Film Week. And on December 13th, the Russian embassy opened an exhibition at the Free University of Kinshasa, that is Congo, organized on the occasions of the 350th anniversary of the birth of Peter the Great. Actually, in June, demonstrations in support of Putin and Russia's presence in the region are organized in Goma, in North Kiev. So demonstrations were directed against the presence of UN forces, primarily Western representatives, under slogan, "We are against hypocritical allies. So Putin will come to our aid." This is what protesters were saying in June. So, in August 2022, Moscow approved the agreements on the supply of modern military equipment from the Russian Federation to the Democratic Republic of Congo. So, the key person involved in the Democratic Congo's defense military, of course, the Congo's, of course, defense minister, and that is Gilbert Kabanda. Commander flew to Russia, where he met with the Deputy Defense Minister Alexander Fomin on the sidelines of the 10th International Security Conference, which took place from August 15th to 18th. So later, Minister Gilbert Kabanda confirmed that they discussed the agreement ratified in 2018 on the purchase of weapons by the Democratic Republic of Congo, Congo Army from Russia to equip the armed forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo, which necessarily means to ensure security of its national territory. So, immediately after Gilbert Kabanda's August visit to Russia, Moscow, Western diplomats working in Africa expressed concern about the possible deployment of Wagner PMC forces in Congo. However, in October, President Felix Tshisekedi ruled out the possibility of Russian mercenaries being used to suppress the conflict, also being used to, of course, to suppress the conflict. Also, the Russian embassy in Kinshasa, Congo, separately denied Western publication about the possibility of the PMC Wagner involvement in the Democratic Republic of Congo. However, in the early January 2023, representatives of the M23 rebel movement stated that Wagner PMC's mercenaries were already present in the eastern province of North Kivu in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So the country's official authorities denied the allegations, though. So similar information was provided earlier in December by sources in the neighboring Rwanda, where the Kinshasa authorities were accused of inviting the Wagner mercenaries in Congo. So white mercenaries were allegedly the Romanian, of course, were with allegedly Romanian passports, was spotted in, of course, in the vicinity of Goma. There is evidence that the Wagner mercenaries arrived in Goma by 2022 December and stayed at the Mbiza Hotel, which also housed 103 former French legionaries. So who had flown in the course in the Bucharest. So the hotel is guarded by the Republican Guard, controlled by President Tshisekedi, the current president of Congo now. So, however, the deterioration of relations with the neighboring Rwanda, which supports the rebels to the point of violating military airspace, and of course the inability of the UN forces to provide inadequate assistance forces them to ask for weapons from Russia and support of the deployment of the mercenaries, the Wagner mercenaries. So Russia benefits from growing instability, which encourages local allies to seek new external allies. It also creates opportunities to discredit UN peacekeeping initiatives within Africa. So the geographical location of the Democratic Republic of Congo directly borders the Central African Republic. I said this is the first place where, of course, these people existed and spread to other parts of Africa, where the Russian military and missionary, of course, Russian military and mercenaries from the Wagner PMCs are present, influence on the Democratic Republic of Congo, and allows for the formation of territorial strip from Sudan and to the Atlantic Ocean, which will weaken the West's position and force even neighboring states to take Russia into account, in particular during the UN votes. Listening, and I'm trying not to laugh. He's trying not to laugh whenever he remembers my phone. Mosquito, buy me a phone. Mosquito, buy me a phone. Mosquito, he's trying not to laugh. He's trying not to laugh. Mosquito. But Maria, and those you can see that these PMCs or the Wagner group is across Africa. They're also, of course, present in Congo. And of course, when we see that, of course, when we talk about these people, they're also seen, of course, in Mozambique. We see that the Wagner mercenaries were deployed to Mozambique at the invitation of the government to fight the Islamic State's Central African province terrorists in the north. So gas-rich province of Cabo Delgado, and of course protect strategic infrastructure in the mining industry. So the government has, of course, previously, the government of Mozambique considered hiring companies from other countries, including the United States, but chose Wagner, of course, PMCs because of the lower cost of their services. Not least the fact that the USSR supported the Frelimo, the current ruling party, in the struggle for Mozambique's independence from the Portugal, played a role in the decision. Also, the day before Russia had written off the 90% of the Mozambique's debt, the Wagner PMCs began operations in the country in September 2019. So along with this, we see that Russia's position in the country has strengthened Mozambique and Russia and signed an agreement and, of course, liquefied gas production, cooperation in the energy and the military sectors. So, in the future, we see that the economic agreement was to be expanded to include the construction of the new pipeline through South Africa. So the Wagner PMCs proved ineffective in the fight against terrorists. So suffered personal losses and, of course, ceased their activities in Mozambique. So the reasons for their failure included lack of understanding of the situation in the country and cooperation with the Mozambican armed forces, because for them, whenever they are whenever this Wagner group or the Russians they're in a country, they don't want so much cooperation with the local forces. For them, they make their deals with the president direct. They don't want that cooperation with the local forces. For what? So, despite the fact that the Russian, of course, mercenaries are no longer operating in Mozambique, Russia's influence persists in the country. So Mozambique refrains from condemning Russia's actions in Ukraine, continues economic cooperation with Russia, and even plans to expand trade. So the country's ruling political party, the Frelimo, is friendly to Russia Some of the top representatives of the political force have contacts with Russian businessmen involved in the extraction of gemstones. Accordingly, we see that Russia's clout will grow with extension of cooperation, while support of, for Ukraine will be limited. So when we see that is of course Mozambique, and in Mali, where of course we had actually this Taureg group killing of a number of Russian mercenaries. I'm sorry, at times I say mercenaries, but I mean mercenaries. So in Mali, opportunities for Wagner PMCs in Mali arose after the coups of the 2020 and 2021, and the rise to power of the military junta linked to the Russia. So the security operations in the region of Mali were carried out by France as part of the Operation Barkhane until 2021. When it was terminated, it was of course curtailed due to the criticism from the Mali, so high costs and a number of other factors. So in December 2021, we see that Wagner PMC began operating in Mali at the invitation of the country, at the invitation of the country's leaders to combat the terrorists' threat in the northern province. So the invitation of mercenaries was the next step in the gradual increase in security cooperation between Mali and Russia. Previously, an agreement on security and defense cooperation was signed, and Russian weapons were transferred to Mali. So the Wagnerites in Mali accused of violence and killing of civilians, over 500 people in Mali, which is being investigated by the international organizations, but they killed over 500 civilians in Mali. I think Mali is the country where, of course, this Wagner group, it is the country where the Wagner group has created a lot of atrocities. So the involvement of the Wagner PMCs in Mali carries risks of increasing Russia's influence and its potential control over illegal migration and drug trafficking routes through the Sahel region. So access to uranium, diamonds, and gold deposits. So this is, of course, this poses risks to the security situation in Mali today. So as Russian, of course, mercenaries have previously demonstrated their ineffectiveness in the fight against terrorists in Mozambique. At the same time, the successful fulfillment of their tasks will lead to an increase in the number of African countries willing to hire them, which in turn will lead to an increase in Russia's role on the African continent as a whole. So that is Mali. So when we talk about Burkina Faso, we normally talk about Burkina Faso every time. Burkina Faso and Russia. Burkina Faso is a country that has been, of course, steadily gravitating towards Russia since the coups that took place in 2022. And of course, in January 2023, Burkina Faso, of course, has expelled French special forces involved in anti-terrorist operations. So some suspect that Wagnerites also already operating in the country, but Burkina Faso leadership denies this. So at the same time, the country's leader Ibrahim Traoré calls Russia a key strategic security partner in his statement. So Burkina Faso may be attractive to Russia because of its position in the Sahel region and the region where Russia seeks to dominate, as well as its gold deposits. So several pro-Russian information campaigns have already been implemented in Burkina Faso. People with Russian flags and slogans were seen during protests. Similar things happening in Mali today before the Wagnerites were invited into the country. Also, the Russian company has, of course, recently received the permissions to develop gold deposits within Burkina Faso. So given the continuing terrorist threat in these countries, Mali and Burkina Faso, the need for forces to combat it, and the constant increase in cooperation with Russia, it is likely that the Wagner PMC, of course, mercenaries, may appear in the country, which will have negative consequences for security of the region and will continue to be strengthening Russia's leverage in Africa. So, 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 uh, this is a serious issue that is happening. However much a lot of African countries would be having that, would be having, of course, that feel to invite these people in their countries to, of course, to combat security instabilities and security issues in, of course, in these countries. But the general predictions for the Wagner's PMCs to enter a particular country are unstable security situation and political regime that has friendly relations with Russia, or dictatorial regime that tries to use mercenaries to crack down on the opposition rallies. So local recruitment from countries such as Mali, Chad, and Sudan continues. So the use of Libya as a forward base allows the Wagner PMCs to exert pressure on Chad and Niger, which often turns into border clashes, sometimes with significant losses for the Russians, just like in the recent, of course, fight. In general, this weakens the security and the peace of the entire Sahel region. Given the end of France's Operation Barkhane and the little desire of other parties to actively influence the situation, North Africa and the Sahel region experience continuous social, economic, and security instabilities per now. And this creates, of course, excellent conditions for the deployment of Wagner units in the countries. So this is especially the case of the regime that needs to retain power or support on the other parties in the civil conflict. So as a result, this affects the entire region, leading to even greater fluctuations, coups, and of course wars. So, so for Africa, this is of course awakening, allowing this Wagner group to be, of course, in African politics, like to be, of course, forging out, fighting, of course, insurgents as rebels in Africa. This is of course weakening of the security situation, as they are not effective as the Europeans or American military, resulting in increase of regional instability and refugee crisis in Africa. So for Ukraine, that means growing Russia's influence in Africa, most Russia's access to mineral resources, spreading propaganda and expanding economic cooperations with the countries of the continent, which can partially block the impact of sanctions and continue to sponsor the war in Ukraine, because it is still getting, actually it's getting minerals, expensive minerals from Africa, so it can still support the Ukrainian war. So for the world, we see that this is strengthening of the Russian-Chinese bloc and weakening of the Washingtonese and Europe's position in Africa. Also due to destabilization in the Sahel region, there is a threat of increased, of course, migration to Europe, diverting attention from the Russian-Ukrainian war. So we see that Madagascar as a country, Madagascar is that small country that is in the Indian Ocean, is gravitating towards the Russian orbit. There are known cases of elections in 2019 where Russia tried to bribe presidential candidates and of course interfered in the electoral processes in every possible way. So Southern Sudan, which is also quite sympathetic to Russia, is also at risk due to the unresolved conflict within the country. And that is, of course, what we normally say here, that it is very hard, of course, to see these Bazungu countries, including Russia, coming out here in Africa for the need, or for African being. Whenever they come here, they guard mineral, of course, mineral areas. They guard mineral resources. If at all INNOSSETU is having a small land, they come out and, of course, bribe. So that is what they really do here. Well, you get a call for.
Ngada ngoyo thola. Man. Anyway. Um, with you know, when it's I don't know why this thing is there. Jacobo kuliko general mosquito. Sera bafeesi ombisa ennyindo ombisa omumwa n'engaddole. So, anyway, like I always say, at times the things I say, mate, these are perspectives at which I view some of the things. You know, the Russian machineries have been here, like I said, for quite some time now. A lot of people didn't even know that we have Russian machineries, more especially the Africans. They didn't know this until we started seeing on the news. Actually, they became prominent after these coups that we've been seeing. They were there in Central Africa, they've been there in Sudan, they've been there in these other countries, and they are there in a lot of countries. Silently, okay? In Central Africa, people started raising their eyebrows when there were so many and moving all over the place. Helicopters were dropping them every time. We are seeing helicopters flying and landing, and everyone was like, what is it with the bazungus, military everywhere? For some people were like, maybe they are Americans and all that. And so, but they were Russian, they were Wagner people. There came, of course, a situation in Congo where we also saw these very people there. When the existence of different groups in Congo shows that there is no one here for Africa's best interest. Because first of all, if this we have the German mercenaries in Congo, we have the Americans, we have the British, we have the Russians, and to top it all, we have got Arabs there. Okay? We have even got the French there. We have got even some Africans who have there. You see, these people sit on a table and for them they don't care. Just exploit, take what you have. Because otherwise we will see these people trying to fight. But we've never seen exploiters fighting each other when they are in the field. This is the best example is in Congo, because Congo is one of the countries in Africa that has got very many different countries, of course, exploiting it at the same time. And they're using the same routes. They're using the same routes, the same load blocks, they're passing through the same load blocks and all that. but they are fine with each other. Actually, they are watching each other's back rather than caring about what is going on with the local people or the people in Congo at the time. Okay? Now, we have seen these Russian people. Africans are these are people you tell something, more especially, I don't know the problem with that we have really. Africans will question everything. Their fellow African is promising them, their fellow African is telling them, they will never doubt anything a Mzungu says. Okay? People have been so comfortable with the existence of the Russian Wagner group because for them, they believed, for it, it's all about its own. I mean, since it's a machinery group, it's hired by different people. It has no influence over our government. It has not even influenced what is actually happening with us. It has no issue. It has nothing to do with the fall down or our economy having issues. Russia, and this is why you are seeing a lot of idiots. I'm sorry, I'm going to say this because not everyone who holds the microphone and talks has got some sense. We have seen a lot of even young, I want to be an African leader embracing Russia because for them, at the back of their mind, they have that Russia put forward. I do not involve myself with your politics. How is it possible for you not to involve yourself with the politics of the country that you want to benefit from? It is so actually extremely important for you to involve yourself in the politics because you have to secure your interest. They just don't know one owns all these minerals we see. These are dealings that are done with the government. But of course, Russia at times sabotages. It backstabs some. The moment it sees that you are losing the influence, you're losing the power, then they start crossing to where they know they're going to be more secure. They can only say that our support is not guaranteed. If you use that word, then fine. But of course, I don't want to. They can only say our support towards leaders or towards Africa's politics is not guaranteed. We are going with whoever is coming, but have been, of course, supporting the governments for a long time. But when they use you and they see you're not going to stay in power for some good time, just like the America does with other people, then they have to dump you and go with whoever they feel is stronger. When you become weak, Russia dumps you and she goes with someone who is stronger. Russia's existence in Sudan actually contributes 90% of the ammunition that are being distributed in Central Africa and Congo. For some good time, Russia has had a lot of ammunition dealings. We have seen a lot of guns floating straight up from the center of Sudan to the southern part where Dinkas are right now. And apparently everyone, more especially I've seen Dinkas because by the way now they're part of East Africa. They broke away from the other Sudan because they're so close to Uganda. The southern Sudanese, those the tall guys, they are close to the northern part. And we have very many of them here. Those people, there was a time when they had guns. Even a 10-year-old child would be having a gun. Guns were floating. For Russia, it was just important for it to be selling its gun through black market and other markets, and it was so very okay. And this is why we had the war in the southern part, where the Dinkas, of course, are Christians, those tall the most tall Sudanese actually are called the Dinkas and others. I think they have like 4 tribes, and they're in the southern part. These people were killing each other all the time. We had wars in Sudan where we had the Muslim ones, right, and these others fighting because there was access to guns, machineries. Dinkas used not to have houses. These other people in the southern part of Sudan had no houses. You would find someone is driving an expensive car, but the car is parking outside that tent. Because every day they need, there is no use of you building a permanent house when you're going to see a missile flying over. So people were sleeping in tents. They had money. They had a certain weird flow of money. And I was always wondering, these people are at war. People are running to come to Uganda as refugees. Some of them are entering, every day and night buses are bringing South Sudanese. These people come with a lot of cash. And most of them were dealing in guns. Now, you would still imagine. They don't care whether Africans live, whether you guys are dying, whether we are dying today, tomorrow, at this moment, whatever. For them, it's all about making money. So now that we saw the South Sudanese breaking away from the other part, and of course joining the East African community, we try to see a little bit difference, because now the dealings that were signed with the previous presidents are not connected to them in somehow, but still they still have wars. Remember, at that time when this other southern part wanted to break away, it was a huge war because they have a lot of oil wells. There are a lot of oil wells in the southern part. And now these let me call them the exploiters, wanted to have this oil. And now the people at the southern are saying we want to break away from Sudan, because we are the minority Christians and the other part has got a lot of Muslims. Because we are not recognized. We are being attacked for our skin. We are being attacked for the height we have. We are not receiving, equal opportunities. So they wanted to break away and have a country of their own. And yes, they do have a country of their own now. But it took a struggle, and Russia was supporting this war by giving out machinery, ammunitions were floating all over the area. People began to kill each other. You know, when you have ammunition, when you have a gun, there is a way you start thinking that probably you are invisible, or you are so immortal. Sorry, you are mortal. You are mortal. You can't, you are invisible. You cannot die. And these people would attack business people with guns. The chaos went from religious conflicts, from tribal disputes, from whatever it is, and they joined it to one ground. Everyone needed a living. Everyone was supposed to fight to make sure that they earn a living, to the point of even hurting their own. Oh, now Maria must have got some money from whatever, business she has now. She's heading home. A lot of young people would come and, hijack you, take your money, probably even kill you. People with whom you share a lot. Now they stand to something else. We saw a lot of business people being killed. There is a huge forest that divides, of course, Uganda in the southern part. And a lot of people lost their lives through that. And then when you pass through that forest, it's terrible. When you go to the northern part, when you go to the northern part of Uganda, of course, um, there is a lot of business between the southern Sudanese and the people of the northern part. So, if at all these people could have done, I remember there was a time when the Sudanese started coming here. We saw a lot of Ugandans die. These are people I'm sorry, I really pity and I feel sorry for people who grow up or who are raised or who live in war areas. There is a way they see life differently. These are people who don't have hope. These are people who are psychologically not well, and I would see some of these South Sudanese, and I'm like, why do these people behave like this? A lot of Ugandans actually lost their lives, which is a little bit threatening. I remember there was a scenario: Sudanese come in the club, they want to take alcohol, and after they are drunk, they start telling the DJ, stop the music. We want to hear Sudanese music, and if the DJ doesn't have that kind of music, they shoot the DJ dead because they have got guns, and they entered with the guns in the country. And a lot of commotion like that. So you'd see this people probably who are not used to living a peaceful life, and they don't believe there is peace beyond the violence that have gone up seeing. They don't know there is peace beyond the chaos. Now, these are the things that people want to see Africa turn into. Because when people are used to violent life, they don't think about tomorrow. I have had a lot. Now, this is going to be funny. There are things people live socially, and you look at it and you think it is a normal situation. And probably you're like, yeah, that is their lifestyle. I've been with a lot of Congolese friends. And at times I see and I realize why some of them behave the way they do. When a Congolese person gets money, it is a few people from Congo that can invest money. When they get money, at times away, because of course I had friends. I had some of the friends, they had lost their parents in the war. They were alone and we were studying together. But of course, they were being given an allowance. Apparently, like every month, they were given some money, their rent was being paid. I think by the government through United Nations, I guess by United stuff like that, I don't know. But they are being given some money. And whenever they get money, everybody notices. Okay? So each time they're gonna buy chicken, they're gonna buy beef, they're gonna buy mutton, they're gonna buy fish, they're gonna buy in one day, all right? They're gonna buy a lot of things that you eat like in a week. They'll buy it, they'll buy a lot of books, they'll go and buy. There are people who love gold. There are people who love gold. You'll find that the entire house has a gold chain. Because these are things that I've seen Bazungu stealing from them every time. They fancy because they have seen how Bazungu value this gold. So if for a Congolese person to be representable, he or she should be having at least a bling bling made of gold or a bracelet. That's how you should represent Congo. And this is in their nature, right? And then they will do that, they will eat and do what? They will never sleep the whole night for 3 days. And the next day, you're going to see when the entire place is extremely quiet. And I'm like, so, and if they're quiet, just know they are on zero balance. And I can remind you that each household is given money. They don't give only the head. Each, the youths, the staff, the one who's old, the little ones, everyone is catered for. So after 3 days, you will see the entire place is extremely quiet. Everyone is quiet. They're even coming to borrow. Okay, someone is coming. So, oh, Maria, give me some 1K. I mean, we got nothing to eat at home. I'm like, how and why? How can I eat chicken, beef, all the things you can decide to say today I'm eating this probably and the other, and you are eating all the things in one meal the same day for 3 days, and at the fourth day you cannot even afford buying the cheapest meal or the cheapest grocery, the cheapest food for you to cook. Why? These are people who have lived in a life with no hope. They don't care about tomorrow because they don't know about tomorrow. They have been raised in a violent way, in a violent environment, that each time you turn your eyes to the left, someone is dying. You turn your head to the right, someone is dying. You turn back, someone is dying. Now, such a person, it is very hard for you to be talking about the future when it comes to people who have grown in such an environment. Sometimes I would ask them, like, yo, I had one of their brothers was called Lumumba. So it's like, why do you guys like do that? No, you're going to start for apparently something like 29 days to wait for another month. 29 days you're going to be going without food. And the moment the 29 days are done, you are going to still repeat the same thing and repeat the same thing. But this is what they were molded into. Hopeless people who don't have, I'm sorry, I'm not like trying to sound, but people who don't have hope. Each time they want to eat what they want to spend what they have, because probably they are not sure that tomorrow if they're going to need some food or they're going to need that money to do something. Now, this is the situation that a lot of Africans are going through. This is why it is even very easy for a politician to lie. Somebody's going to say, I'm going to vote to Maria because she gave me a piece of soap. A piece of soap that you're going to use to do laundry, because for us here we use bars. When you're doing laundry, at times, unless people who are using washing machines are the ones who use powders and all those detergents and whatever. Here, since you use your hand, you have to have a bar. Soap that is hard, it's in the form of a bar. It's meant to be a bar, then you cut a piece and then you have to scrub in your clothes and wash with your hands. And yes, though some people prefer the powder, but the majority of the people use that. Okay? So someone gives you that is even not going to wash your clothes for some time, but you appreciate that person. Because probably it is hard for you to afford that small piece. And somebody's going to say, I'm going to vote Maria because she did that. And you're like asking, did what Maria give you? Are you still having whatever Maria gave you? Are still using it? No, it got finished that very day. But she did give me really. You don't really care how many years you're going to live without that piece. You're only minding about that one piece that has been given to you, and you don't care about the years that you might live without a piece of that particular soap. Now, this is the problem that a lot of Africans have. And the problem of believing in a Muzungu, that for Bazungu, whatever, they keep their word. They are men and women of their word. We've heard about this both in relationship, politics, and everything, and religion. So you see, And so when the Russians came and promised the Africans, we saw the likes of Julius Malema. We saw the likes of not only him, by the way, a lot of Africa. Of course, now we are seeing the junta people and all those people who are in support of Russia, believing that yeah, Russia is not going to. If at all I want to stay in power for a very long time, Russia is not going to involve themselves. You know, the Americans involve themselves a lot, and they want to decide for us who is running Africa and who is not, and Russia does not. And actually, this is the major reason why we see a lot of people supporting Russia. There is nothing more to that. The fact that it promised to them that for it is not going to involve itself in the Africans' politics. But are you really sure? If you look at all factors constant, are they not involving themselves? Or is it that we don't want to see? It is another thing to say you believe in a certain kind of governance, and it is another thing for you to practice that. So, when it comes to the raw materials that actually we are having, and the acts and the willingness of a lot of people to want to, of course, mine and exploit all these things, all these raw materials. We know that the United States rumbled. America trembled a lot when it saw Russia. So, so it is through all these things. Now, Russia's coming, or Russia's, of course, trying to come out in the open, because I know the United States of America has known Russia's existence in Africa for a very long time. But Russia coming out in an open to, of course, declare its existence in Africa, and of course trying to be against every act of the US, threatened or scared the US a lot. The US was against China's existence in Africa, and it was trying to open the eyes for the Africans to see what really China is up to. We don't see them do that nowadays, by the way. But Russia came in, and you know, Russia is China's colleague. And of course was supporting China and all that. And so Russia gained a lot of support in Africa compared to the US. But this does not take away the fact that we have had both the US, Chinese, French people, the British, and all that, of course, down here harvesting the honey, the Africa's honey. So when we look at Russia's tactic of Africa, Russia does not really care about the people, or let me say the local people. Yes, we have seen other Russia collaborations with the Africans. We have seen a lot of organizations, of course, from other groups. Let me say, we have seen Save a Girl Child from US. We have seen USAID. We have seen some organizations that will build like a two classroom block in a more especially USAID. We have seen those who try so much to build wells and stuff. Now, a lot of them are still under, I guess, USAID has very many branches. We've got Save the Orphan is still under USAID, I guess. USAID has a lot of branches, okay? And you see from its perspective, actually, it does not focus on the leadership indirectly, all right? Indirectly, US does not come out and say we are doing this to the president, we are sending our American mission, except that we are seeing that right now in Kenya, where we're seeing the US military officials in one of the bases in Kenya, not one, even three of the bases. I don't know what the American military officials are doing there, whatever. So America itself has not been so much in politics. It has been behind, indirectly influencing Africa's politics. And for it, it is like we make deals. It is about we make deals. All right, we make deals. And if you start refusing to agree with the deals, they bring someone else in the picture. They bring Mr. Ruto, they bring Mr. Bobi Wine, they bring them, okay? And they start using them against you who is refusing now to follow whatever they want you to do. Now that is what America has been doing. But the majority of the people in Africa don't really understand how this runs. The first picture America did, sorry, okay, I'm tired of sitting, I'm not leaning against anything. So it's kind of crazy. That's why I keep turning all the time. America, first of all, the way it came like an aid group, giving aid, giving sponsorship to war affected areas, giving green cards to young children who are orphaned. I remember that time, we had a lot of people who have been given green cards. We saw a lot of young children who, of course, who lost their life, their parents through HIV/AIDS. America came in with the aid and all that. It even reached to the deepest part of the villages or up countries. But the funniest thing of it all, it only had a structure that says all that. Now you can understand the game. It creates a structure. As you come around, if you know how to read, you're gonna read USAID, United States, America aid, orphans, and vulnerable children, widows, and whatever stuff, a lot of things. Serve the girl child, give a girl child education, the voice of the voiceless, and all that thing. And once you read that, you say, I can see the existence of America right here and all that. And unfortunately, all these are just structures that are extremely empty. Now, a lot of people did not feel the touch of America's existence in Africa. That is why it is very easy for everyone to turn against it. Most people did not feel the touch. Did not feel the touch. All right? You will come and see a well, and they'll put this well or this borehole was sponsored by the USAID. They always write that. You go to some remote area schools, and mostly these are schools that are government schools. You see like a block of a house that they call a classroom that is going to contain like 80 children or 100, and they have put there something USAID, funded by the USAID. Whatever they do, they always put. But the existence of America's aid has not been felt by the Africans, because it is not used for you to take me to school. It is not used for you to take me to school in my primary level and then boom, I stop in primary and I don't even know the meaning of school education, the purpose. I don't get the purpose of that. And I think that is what they were doing. And I guess with a lot of corruption and all that, things went wrong. If I'm to go and interview people on the streets right now, and you ask people, have you ever heard that America helps people in Africa? A lot of people will say, we don't know. How is that even possible? How does that even happen? And yes, we know for the fact even if whatever they are giving back belongs to us anyway. But that is the game. We have got structures. Now, this same structure is the same strategy that Russia is beginning to use. When we saw the Chinese come, Chinese started giving free bursary. Actually, if you want to go to China and attend schools in the best of some of China's schools, just learn Chinese. Just learn Chinese. This is the requirement that is needed for Africans. You want to attend universities in China, learn Chinese. Okay? You can decide to learn Chinese for a year and then go to the embassy, and nobody's going to deny you a visa. To China, a free scholarship to China, but your being in China and your well-being is not guaranteed. The moment you step there, the racism begins, and you are not protected. I want you guys to see the matrix, because what is the essence of me, you taking me for your bursary, and the moment I enter your country, I'm on bursary, no one is there to protect me. The school does not protect me. The government does not protect me. Now, everyone back in Uganda thinks they took Maria to China. She was speaking Chinese. We are definitely going to learn Chinese. Who doesn't want to go there? We are here struggling to make sure that we get school tuition every time. Our school, we pay like 2.5 million, and that's the second semester. If it's going to be the first semester of the year, you are like in 3.7 M. This is the tuition we pay. Me and INNOSSETU. But where do we work even? But you're supposed to make sure you pay that. All right? Now, who is going to refuse to have such an offer? But you are not told what you're going to experience the moment you board that plane and step in that land. These are the structures I'm talking about. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people will not even graduate. A lot of African children will end up dying over there. A lot of them will even end up being taken to prison. A lot of them are never going to come back. We don't see this. These are the structures, these are the empty structures that have been created by people for a very long time. And yes, we agree to these structures because we have that excitement. We don't see beyond. We are in need. We are so desperate. When you are very desperate, actually when you are desperate in everything, you tend to make wrong decisions. You can never make a right decision when you are desperate. Because when someone is desperate, they don't think twice. Now, this is what is happening in Africa. We don't think twice about the decisions we make. We have been to the walls. We are so desperate for a lot of things. And these things get us off guard. So now everyone is battling to make sure we learn Chinese so that we can go to some universities that, we cannot even afford universities over here. But when you learn Chinese, you're definitely you're going to be given a bursary. You're going to go and study for free. But are you sure you're going to be free over there? Are you going to be fine? Are you going to receive what you are being promised? But yes, these are the things that keep these people people in the positions where they are right now, when you are accepted by the citizens, when you are accepted by the public, it is even very hard for the government to say, we don't want you. When you are accepted by the people, it becomes very easy for you to play all the data games that you feel like you want to play. Now, the issues that we have in Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso with the Russians is because people believe that Russians are Catholics. And for them, they are Muslims. Now, how is the Catholic coming to take lead? How is the Catholic giving command? We are Muslims, that is haram. It is haram. It is not that they are fighting for their country. It is not that they are trying to chase a Muzungu out. They are fighting a religious war. And this actually, no one is coming out to say it is. It is. They only hate the Russians. They only hate the Wagner mercenaries because of the religious differences. And then boom, the Wagner mercenaries also start to train the indigenous people and recruit them in their team.
Guess you lost Seto, huh?
Sorry?
So I guess you lost Seto, huh?
Yeah, he called me, he said his lights are off.
Wow.
You're welcome on our live.
Yeah, how you guys doing? Yeah. Yeah. Well, if his lights is off, he can't see. he probably hasn't seen why I paid him yet.
Oh, I will tell him. I will let him know. How have you been?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm fine.
Well, I just want to come and
What
say
are you
hi.
eating?
I'm about to leave, so hold on, just a second. Hold on. Okay. All right. I see you. I see you still in the village, huh? Taking it easy.
I'm doing some farming. I want to go back when my farm is cleared. I'm planting some stuff.
Okay. Oh, you have to do a
Fine.
farming.
Yeah, so I have to be. Okay, no.
You say you have to farming with the rest of the family? Is that what you said?
Yeah,
Oh,
Jerry
that's cool.
King.
That's cool. So how long you guys? Okay, so you're gonna be there for a while then. So when you gonna go back to Kampala? About a year from now or something? Next year?
Right. When you clear and plant, you go back, you can come back to weed and all that.
Okay. I'm just
And besides, school is still going on.
huh? Plant season
I'll
still going
be,
on.
I'll be going and coming until everything is ready.
Okay, I'm just asking. So, okay. So I'm saying you're gonna be there for a couple of months then, huh? Helping the family plant and sell crops. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right. That's nice. I should Joe Mosquito. Tell Joe Mosquito he can send some Ghanaians over there to help you guys again, like they did back in the '70s. They sent a bunch of you Ghanaians to teach the Ugandans when they got rid of the when Idi Amin kicked out the Indians. He went and got a bunch of Ghanaians to come educate the Ugandans. Way back in the '70s.
And we still have some of them who are here.
Oh, they still
Probably
there?
moved back to Ghana.
Some of the Ghanaian state, some of them are still there. Okay, okay. Yeah, where's Africa? Shit, it doesn't make a difference. Ghana is Africa. So, but anyway, I'm gonna get Maria. I'm saying have a blessed day. Say hi
Thank you.
to your mother, your brothers, who's ever there with you. And
I will.
I'll talk to you guys later. I'm gone. Peace.
Peace. Peace, peace, peace. Sorry, let me close the windows. Sorry, lights here. General mosquito may decide to be entering through the window. So I have to close the windows. But because like I was now when I close the windows and the door, the echoing is too much. And it's hot and it's dark. I'm not even seeing. So we had of course this kind of we have had this struggle within Africa, and the ignorance we have towards the people who claim that they are extending their hands towards Africa's aid, Africa's protection, and all that, yet they're only using that as a tactic to take what, of course, the precious things that you have, or to tap on the honey that Africa has. Um, I was narrating to you how we have a lot of people actually. Let me try to reduce my voice a little because the echoing is fuck. So I was narrating to you how a lot of people, a lot of politicians, or a lot of Africans who are supporting Russia do support Russia because most of them, first of all, apparently everyone who wants to come into power hates the fact that, or hates the feel or the thought of him going to be controlled by someone else and someone telling him or her what to do. But at the end of the day, this is what again they're experiencing in real life. I know when they're coming into power, there is a lot. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna accept this. I'm gonna stand into this. But remember, last time I gave you an example. We have a cheese. Sorry. So, like I was saying, yet this. So these are the so like I was saying, a lot of people don't want to accept that whether they like it or not, they are still at the end they are going to be controlled. I give you an example that the control of Africa's leaders is inevitable. Is inevitable unless you are strong enough to stand on your own, or unless Africa decides that we are going to help each other. We cannot see, of course, let me say, for example, Uganda having a new leader, and you say you're going to stand on your own without control or influence of other people like Russia, China, and so on and so forth. It can only happen if at all we say Kenya is in support of your leadership, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, or all those, Sudan, South Sudan, and what? You are uniting to support a particular government, all right? We don't usually see that. Now, a country like Uganda, last time I was telling you guys that we have got contracts that have been signed, contracts that are signed, like contracts that are expanding to something like 90 years. You can imagine a contract that is taking 90 years to expire. A lot of us gonna die and leave those contracts existing. Now you're coming as a new president, you're gonna find all these files filled with contracts that are going to even leave, even the contracts that are going to exist even when you're gone. Contracts that are going to be in existence even after 4 to 5 presidents or leaders. Okay, because most of these contracts are not contracts of 1, 2, 3, 5 years. These people sign contracts that are extremely long. Now, if at all we've had contracts between the government of China and Uganda, and it is expanding for 90 years, and Maria comes into power, I should have guts. No, this is not child play. This is not child's play. I know it is very exciting for me to stand up and say, I declare this, but how long am I going to be in that position if I do that? Am I going to give my people what I want them to have? And the living factors constant, people don't want. Do you know how sweet that place is? Someone's going to say, how can I be a president for 2 months and I'm down? At least let me be here for a year or 2 or 3. Okay? It takes a lot for you to decide to step down. But if you're someone who has decided to work for your people, it hurts for you to step down and to step down, yet knowing your people are still going to go through the exact thing that you've wanted to fight for a long time. That means if I decide so you will realize that if at all you are to stand as a government, and so we are standing against China, you should take a lot of caution. Now let's imagine that I say, Maria, I'm coming into power and I'm canceling all the deals that China has had with Uganda. I need to have a strong relationship with the neighboring countries. So if Kenya does not put hold to the deals it has with China, then China is going to decide whether Kenya is going to have a relationship with me or not. A trade relationship, an economical relationship. Is Kenya going to have that relationship? Of course, China says, Kenya, if you don't cut yourself away from Uganda, if you do not cancel, if you do not, we are not going to have these deals with you. And Kenya wants the deals. So what is the leader going to do at that time? Are you either going to cancel that deals with China or let it go because you're not strong enough to stand alone? We cannot have an individual country standing alone against all these people who are eyeing Africa. All we need is to have African countries coming together to fight against this, to unite against this. You as an individual country, you can't. Let's assume Uganda. Uganda is a landlocked country. Let's assume that you say we are going to break away from all the dealings we have with Russia and all these people. There are lots of people who want these dealings for their own selfish gains. Then how are you going to do it? That means you're going to cause insecurities. We're going to see a lot of invasions. We're going to see a lot of rebels coming out from different zones, from different sides. And this is how instability comes in. But before that, we have to look at a greater picture. We as Africans, we have to look at a bigger picture. We have to look at a stronger relationship. Because I can guarantee whether we like it or not, without each other, we are nothing. We are nothing. This is just the typical truth. I'm going to drive you back a little to the days of Idi Amin. Idi Amin, he knew it was very important for him to have bonds or agreement. If at all he was to pass something, he knew it was important for other African countries to agree with the terms and conditions that he had put across. You remember that time when he wanted to boycott the Olympics because they refused to, the band in the Olympics refused to sing the Africa's national anthems because they claimed they did not know the Africa's national anthem. And immediately Idi Amin passed and said, we are all going to boycott. No African should be seen attending the Olympics. If any African country attends this Olympics, that means it is declaring an enemy for other African countries who have rejected this. And all other countries, the African countries, boycotted the Olympics because the band refused to sing the Africa's national anthem. In the next Olympics, we saw them singing the Africa's national anthems. That is the power. That shows these people can do something. That is the power. When we have, that is the power that Africa is lacking right now. Because let's assume that Amin had said that, and then other countries, let's assume that he had said that, and other countries decided to just continue with the Olympics, refusing to boycott it. That means he would still stand alone. Even the Bazungu would not be singing the Africans' national anthems in the Olympics at that time. And remember those days, for you as a Muzungu, it was easier for you to be killed in Africa because we did not have too much of influence like the one we have now. All of this, at that time we had the existence of the Bazungu, which was so direct. You could see and know exactly what a Muzungu wants. Now everyone comes as a helper. We are helping you from, the US is doing this, so we want you to go to start. We are going to support and give you aid. And somebody else comes, if you are going to be up against this leader, America is right behind you. China comes in, everyone comes like they're trying to aim at interest of specific people, not the general interest of the people. And I think this tactic has been, of course, learned by the Bazungu throughout the course of time. But yeah, that is Africa for you. It's getting extremely darker here, guys, and it's late. and I need to go and buy some small stuff. I will you have to forgive me. I have to end here before it gets very, very dark. Haiyawe. Anyway, nasema kwaheri, mulale salama. In my language they say murare kuronge, meaning have a good night. Until tomorrow, tutaonana.
So now this had killed the market for, of course. So now this had killed the market.